Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we have an opportunity to go back in time and go across the pond to Switzerland and to this reel. This reel was sent in by Scott. It was one of his flea market finds. It's a Swiss-made Stucky, and on the bottom it says J.W. Stucky, Balthasar Thun, Switzerland, and Swiss-made. So this one reminds me, and may even be affiliated or somehow the same as the Thumans and the records. And of course the record was the one that was the preset for the Abu spinning. The reel works beautifully and has the half bail. The half bail was an answer to casting the line and retrieving the line, but it couldn't be a full bail because there was a patent out there on the full bail which didn't expire, if I remember, until the mid-50s. So this reel probably dates post-war, but probably not that much post-war. So curious, I'm sure somebody out there is going to know a little bit more about this than I do, and I'm always welcoming the information and welcoming the opportunity to learn more. So we're going to take this reel apart. We'll show you how it's made. We'll service it for Scott. I'm not sure if this is going to become a shelf sitter or if Scott wants to take this fishing, but as it appears right now, well, it can go fishing. Interestingly enough, this is the type of fishing reel that I learned to surf cast with. Mine was a Centaur, but it had the same half bail feature, and we always got a lot of laughs by catching our fingers and that on that little hook there. But when you're learning, well, you learn one thing is to avoid those darn points. Okay, let's take off the top first. As we do, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you like working on fishing reels, if you like learning about fishing reels, and if you're just curious about how they're made, how they come together, what makes them different, what makes them the same. Big gear drives little gear, makes them the same. And if you have an interest in just kind of picking up some of the mechanical stuff. There's a little bit of junk on the top of the reel here. I just put a little bit of penetrating oil on there. You can use a reel cleaner or anything like that. Right now I just want to get some of that stuff off because this is where the drag is housed. The drag looks to be a leather washer with a press plate and a drag adjuster knob. And this one would be designed for fresh water. You only have a single drag washer here. Look at that, after all these years, there's still flexibility in that leather washer. Well, leather washers can be greased or they can be oiled. I'm going to use a reel grease for that. I'm going to use Cal's Universal Reel Grease. It's this one's designed for drag washers. Leather is porous, and you want to keep the pores of the leather flexible so that they can bend back and forth and not dry out. Well, when you use that reel grease, work it in. I've done that with my gloved hand. I kind of dipped it in there, and then wipe off the excess. If you don't wipe the excess off, it's just going to squeeze out. There's no value to having excess grease there, or basically any place on a reel. And quite honestly, I get that question a lot from folks, why don't you put more grease on? Well, at a point in the process, you're going to have too much grease. The grease is just going to shed from the moving parts to, well, the path of least resistance where there is no moving parts, and it's just kind of wasteful. All right, so we took care of the spool. Inside the rotor here, it's going to be interesting to see how the rotor's held on. It may just be kind of riveted into the case. There's just a little bit of dirt, so we'll do the same thing. Just going to wipe it out. So much of the reel servicing on an annual basis it's just about doing the little things right. I'm going to put a little bit of oil in here. There's just one little spring that's the return spring. So underneath here you can see there's a catch in that slot there, and eventually that catch is going to reach the high point and trip it back. Okay, underneath here we have the handle. This usually just turns off. There you go. You got to be careful with these older reels, if you don't know them, and I don't know this one, I'm just kind of going on the instincts, as well as having serviced the records and the Thompson, just going on the instincts that was a screw-on handle and that it came off in a clockwise manner. But if you find yourself tightening something way too much or struggling with it, stop. You may break it off. It may be reverse threaded. You'll notice that I've switched screwdrivers. Normally I use a thin-bladed screwdriver. You want to match the head of your screwdriver to the slot in this screw as best you can. These have little butterflying going on, which would suggest that somebody was using a smaller screwdriver like this, and that's going to tear up the slot. So use the screwdrivers that are as close as you can get to the width of the slot. That'll prevent the butterflying, and it'll prolong the life of those screws. Well, those screws are going into a parts tray. It's off camera. It's a bottom of a fast food container, and it's a convenient place to hold all your pieces and parts for when you go to reinstall. All right, I'm not seeing anything special other than the 3 of these screws holding this case in. So let's go ahead and take it apart and see what we have. Well, this is an interesting design. It has a main gear, has a slotted center gear. There's going to be a stud that will work on this one. That stud is in the case here. Looks like we got our answer to how the rotor is put on. There's a keyway underneath here that if we bring it up, we can do that, and then we can pull the whole assembly out. And then I believe if we remove this pin, we should be able to bring the axle shaft out. I'm guessing good so far. And then this appears to be peened or pressed into the case. All right, I'm going to take my pin. It's going to drive the crosswind block. I'm going to take a paper towel. We'll clean up the old grease on this. These are quality made parts. Almost all of the stuff post-World War was the materials that were known at the time. Aluminum was just coming into play. Aluminum technologies kind of really took a spring forward with all of the aircraft and manufacturing going on during World War II. So did a lot of alloys and the like that you don't see in the earlier reels. Okay, clean the case off. There might be a little bit of dirt inside there, so let's just bring a cotton swab in to take care of that. Clean off the last of that. That goes in my case. On the bottom here, there's nothing moving in terms of parts. We kind of took care of the swing arm already, but I do want to clean that case. I'll use a rod and reel cleaner for that. Just a quick shot. And again, these are older reels, kind of to be treasured. I mean, it certainly can go fishing, and I hope Scott takes them fishing, or at least gives it a try to take it fishing. But use the most gentle of the cleaners first. This one's got paint loss on it, so you're not looking to use something like an abrasive pad. Kitchen scrubbies generally do a good job of cleaning without tearing things up. The rod and reel cleaner generally has just enough cleaner in it to take care of it without scarring it or damaging it. I've seen a lot of these cleaners with acid bases in them, whether citric or whatever, and that's certainly going to exacerbate a problem if one exists. So be careful with that. Right, the tie down's going in, the rotor is going in, and all we're seeing here is just a whole bunch of old grease. And this is a clicker. There's not an anti-reverse. There's a clicker that tells you that the reel is spinning backwards. There's an override on the case for that, but this one can spin forward and back as best I know. I haven't seen a throw arm or anything that would tell me that there's a override there. So just old grease. That's what we're kind of working on right now. Again, nice solid piece of metal here for the gearing. Now I'm using steel wool just because it's dried grease on there, and I don't feel I'm going to damage that main gear. And that main gear looks like it might be stainless, but I'm not sure. It's got more weight than aluminum. Some of the manufacturers used aluminum. Mitchell being one of them, but this one seems to be steel, and it's maybe stainless. All right, just take the old piece off of here. And right now, I'm going to try a cotton swab, see if I can get inside that channel. Do a little bit of cleaning in there. That wasn't that dirty. All right, so there's your solid molded case. This has got a stud on it, but I'm not sure if it comes off. There's no screw head or the like. We're just going to leave that as it is. Now, let's try and put it back together again. Those are always fun. So one of the things I recommend as you're doing these is take pictures along the way. If you forget what you did, well, that's where the pictures come into play. They're good reminders. And somebody asked me once, they said, yeah, you say to take the pictures, but you don't. Well, I do. The video is a picture, right? Moving picture, but a picture nonetheless. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't stop a few of my videos from time to time to try and figure out where a piece or part belonged. So just be aware of that. All right. I'm going to just go ahead and reassemble this now. I'm going to put the rotor on. And we have that clip that seats under the rotor. That's going to hold it. You can spin that right now. Well, hold it in and spin it. But that's doing what it should be doing. I'm going to take the axle shaft next. I'm going to give that a light coating of grease. This question comes up a lot. What kind of grease? Fishing reel grease. I use Penn Precision real grease for this, and I recommend that you do the same. I'm noticing that the action here is a little tight. I'll just go back in that hole there and see if there was something kind of clogging up the path. There's no bearings in this one. This is a bushing. All right, well, I think that's what we're going to get there. Next up then is the pin. Pin goes in. And this is the pin it's going to ride in the groove. Now there was two different sides of the pin. That's why you saw me looking. There was a thin piece and a thicker end. And then what we want to do is we want to get some grease onto the gear where it's going to slide, and we also want to get grease onto the teeth that are going to intersect with the pinion gear up top on the rotor. And then last we want to get grease onto the back end shaft. I think the easiest way to do this one is probably to center it this way so that you can get the pin from that's in the shaft into the groove of the main gear, and then kind of line it up about right. And one more time we'll just use that cotton swab to get inside the groove there, and there's a little bit of grease inside there. All right, the shaft is greased. You should just be able to put this over. We have the pin in, so it's just a matter now of locking in on the case. That was a nice snap. Think about that. You got a 60 or 70-year-old reel here, and it just snaps right into place. And now we can just go about resetting this. So if you have a question on this reel or any reel in particular, maybe you're working on one and you're stuck, or you just have a general question about age or spinning or whatever, just leave that in the comments section. I'll try to answer that for you. But we're just trying to get these started. I don't want to start it with just using a screwdriver because I want to make sure that we're not cross-threading the entry points. Because if you do, well, again, this is an older reel, and you don't get many of these around. This is the first one I'm working on. It's a Stucky. And I don't know where you would get parts for it other than finding another one. And this one's just being a little stubborn here. Alright, here we go. So again, use the widest blade you can fit in the slot. That way you can avoid damaging those screws. We'll do the top one, the bottom one, and so on. This was a nice flea market find that Scott had. And it's always fun to find some of these. Kind of learn a little bit about the histories of the reels. Understand what the designs were and how they've changed over time. And a flea market is a good place to do that because typically you're not going to be paying collector prices or anything. You're going to find some. Sometimes you'll even find them that are in damaged condition. And sometimes that's what I call a tuition reel. You just kind of take them and you put them together, take them apart, see how they go, and work backwards from there. Spool goes on next. And we have the leather drag washer that we put the grease on. This one's got a little stud in the middle, so find the slot that it goes in. That goes next. And we can do the button. The button is an adjuster for the tensioning of the drag. And we can put that handle back on. Now we took it off in a clockwise manner, so it's going to turn towards you counterclockwise. Oops, put it back on. Oh, we got a nice loud clicker now, don't we? So this is the click adjustment, and I think it's a turn. I'm not even sure. I don't know. Well, we got a nice loud clicker going, that's for sure. Everything is working fine. Pull it out maybe. There you go, you pull it out. And you can see the gap there. Well, that's one nice reel after all these years of service. Works nicely. Push it in for your, I guess, for your click. And when you do your drag service, after you're sure that it's tightened, loosen it back up. Don't press the grease out. Don't allow it to dry. If you keep it down that way, it acts as a vise on glue, and eventually it'll just weld itself to one piece or the other, and then you're kind of stuck with the drag and have decreased the potential life. So this is your Stucky Swiss made reel. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders and essential personnel and everybody involved in keeping us safe during the pandemic. Your efforts were heroic, continue to be, and they are appreciated. To all, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.